I want to introduce to you just really a nice, quick, kind of simpler way to get started on these really open frame filigree work. You know, I really never had a chance to get into a lot of these curls and negative space that I think is beautiful. And you could use this just in itself or in so many different ways. So that's kind of the magic of this filigree. So what I want to start with is you always want to start with a border. So when you're thinking about your border on your piece, and I'm going to make another oval, but of course they can be any shape that you want. Circular shapes are always work out really well, or rounded edges work really well in jewelry and home decor, you know, by the way. But squares, I mean, I love all squares and triangles and all different shapes. But I have with me, I decided to use, for me, I decided to use twisted wire on the outside bezel of my piece. So what I'm going to do, you can really choose and pick. The first thing I started doing, I used, if you're using too small of a twist, you know, you have to think about how high up the dimension is on your wires that you're putting into your piece. So here's a picture from the side. So for the wires inside of this piece, I'm actually using an 18 gauge, and I'll show you how I flatten them and put them through the rolling mill. You know, you don't have to use a rolling mill, but it's nice to do just for preciseness and smoothness. Not that you have to have that, but I'm going to show you. So you really start with the outside of your piece because that defines your piece. This is actually, I'm using an 18 gauge on the inside. So what I actually used was an 18 gauge twisted wire on the outside to build my frame. You know, really you can use any type of gauge that you want to. That's all up to you. If you want it bigger, you know, to give you more impact, or if you want it smaller to be more feminine and delicate, that's going to be up to you. So there's another project inside here where I show you how to twist your wire, but we don't have to do that here. So this is twisted 18 gauge. And I am just going to straighten this out. It always works best if you can just straighten it out as much as you can from the beginning. This is already annealed. It's twisted, annealed, and ready to go. So you can use a template. You can not use a template. I'm actually just going to pull up a little template here. Not that you have to have these templates, but these are nice when you're deciding on the side of your piece. And then you can always shape it into whatever you want to shape it into later. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a double flush edge on here. So I'm going to snip it with my double flush pliers. So my edge is literally a tabletop. And then I'm just going to bring it into, I decided to use this size right here. I'm just going to bring it into the inside. This isn't going to be exactly what, you know, I'm going to actually bring it out a little bit more and not have it as round. But it's nice just to know how much wire you need to use on your piece. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is just put a little mark here with a marker where I have to cut this. Okay. Now I'm done with the template. And you don't have to use a template, really, guys. This is just, you know, making a decision on the size and shape. So again, I'm going to double snip this so it's nice and flush at the edge. And looks nice and flush. So to put this together, I don't have to keep it into any type of a shape. So I'm just going to bend these into each other. See what a match this is. See how I like it. There we go. And this is just that simple. I'm going to put up my flux. This is the flux. You guys kind of know this routine. It's almost like setting the edge on a bezel, right? And let me put my pliers to the side. Get my torch lit. Oop. Whoop. I don't need such a big flame for this. Such a tiny piece. I always use my pick soldering. I think you guys are used to me pick soldering by now. That's an easy. This is a hard over here. Grab a little hard. And this is really just very gentle, placing this down. There we go. That's it. That's all you need. Okay. Okay, let me get this quenched. A lot of times I'll just quench it. This is sterling silver, so a lot of times I'll just quench this right into, right into a container. Okay, I don't want that at the top where I've joined it, so I'm going to get this into shape. I can put this back into my template if I wanted to. This one's going to be a nice little small one. I can pull it with my, this will be a little small one that'll be adorable. This is so light too, so these are great for earrings. So I'm going to pull it this way, and then I'm going to pull it out on the sides. If I wanted to, I could bring it back into my template and really get a nice fit in here. There we go. That's the nice thing about templates, is that you can, get your shape back exactly the way you want it. And because I soldered it, it's annealed again. So it should all stay in place. That's why templates are easy. Okay. You can see there's a little bit of, I need to flatten this out a little bit. So I have on the side, I'm going to pull this up. I'm just going to tap this very gentle. Once you get your shape on here that you want, I'm just using my little anvil today. You just want to tap it very gentle. I don't want to lose my shape. I don't want to lose my shape. Okay, I'm going to keep this up, so I'm going to put this to the side. Now, I'm going to use some 18 gauge. These are for all the spirals that are inside this piece. So I actually started off using 2.5 inches of wire, of 18 gauge wire that is not twisted. And I'll show you that. So let's see. 2.5 inches right here. Create just one. I made up 3 or 4 of these. I always like having extras. 3 or 4 is going to be more than enough. And then what I did is I just very gently tap these nice and flat to get them flat and straight. I usually don't hammer here, but it's nice for filming. Very nice for filming. Okay, what I did with mine is once you get this flat enough and straight, you could either put these through the rolling mill. You can see when I did put them through the rolling mill, they're nice and flat and even. Truthfully, to me, I love a little unevenness in my wire. But I just thought I'd put it through the rolling mill as an extra step to get that nice, try something different for once. You guys are used to rustic from me. So that's going to be your guys' decision. If you have a rolling mill, they're expensive, but they're nice sometimes. So let me put these down here. Okay, so that's our other material that we're using. Once you get, this piece is annealed, once you get your piece ready here, you want to anneal that. So these pieces are annealed. I'm going to go ahead and anneal, which means bringing it up to a red glow, bringing your silver up to a red glow, nice and quick, and then this gets pickled. Okay, there we go. Okay, this gets pickled. Now, I am going to be a little bit like Susie Homemaker today, because I do have these pieces here. This is the fun part, is that you really can work this whole design. You can work this whole design around, what you have going on here. So that's cool. Okay, these discs I have here, which I have a whole other program. You can order these cut like this. You can cut a little disc for the center. I have another project where I showed you these discs, and I can show you again. But I want to start, if I'm putting this in the center of my piece, I want to start with my center, whatever is the center of your piece, and then you can work your filigree around that. So let me put these 2 pieces to the side, and I'm going to show you how I have an extra one just in case. And the size of This I like to do right on here. The size, I'll get you the size. Hang on one second, I'll get you the size. Okay, so the size actually is a, oh my gosh, let me see if I could read this. Oh, 5/16. So I use a 5/16 hole. This is a cutter where I can insert. I just do my own disc cutting here. Then I have different dies that tap inside of here and you just slice it through. And I do have a whole video on using this tool. So you guys, I'll show you that later on. Okay, so for now what I'm going to do is get this part of it going. Put my hammer over here. Okay, here's this. Where is my beautiful paintbrush? Usually I like to have a couple paintbrushes here because, here we go, I'll use this paintbrush. Okay. What I'm going to do is just, I actually love this circular area around here. And then these are made out of fine silver, a little, which I'll do it another time. These are all made out of fine silver. And I have made this little beautiful silver piece that's so tiny out of fine silver too. So let me show you. Sterling silver, fine silver, these are all fine silver here. And these are the pieces and parts that I'm going to use. You don't have to use these. You guys can use whatever you want to. But if I do want to make a granulation, I'll show you real quick how to make, you know, really one of the easiest things to do if you want to put a center in there is just solder together a little twisted wire. This is fine silver. You can see I just have a tiny little piece of fine silver here. And I'm going to come in with a torch. Whoops, don't mind me. And I'm just going to bring this up to a beautiful round shape. These you can do in any way you want, but I want a flat bottom on there. Isn't that beautiful? So I want a flat, and I know you guys have seen this before in one of my others, but if you haven't, this gives me a beautiful flat shape on the bottom of this granulation, and it's fine silver, so it's not going to get dirty except for picking up some of the board on here. So let me take off a little bit of this board so I can get this to stick, and I mean my soldering board. It picks up. Okay. All right, so now we have this, I'm going to put a little dot. I'm going to start working with medium. I soldered my other pieces together with a hard, and now I'm going to go into medium. And I've got my medium right here in this corner right here. I just have it all around the big board. So let's get a little bit of medium solder on there so I can get this going. You guys can see I still sometimes really like putting flux even on fine silver. They say you don't have to put flux on fine silver, but I'm going to put on a little bit more so it hits the side. I want it to hit the side because I really think it would be beautiful with a piece like this on the side. So let me get that fluxed right on the side. A piece like this, so you guys can see there's just a little collection of, no, what I need to do is put a little piece of solder on here. So let me get a medium. Oh my gosh, you just love soldering, like you love seeing this solder flow. Right like this. Ta-da! Ta-da, isn't that fun? Okay, so now I have a lot of layers on here, so let me get this put into place, and then everybody's ready to go, all at one time. I can have a beautiful piece, and you can just, you know, if you don't have you can make those granulations as a collection. The wire, I want to be very careful. The most fragile piece on here is this wire going around the side. So I want to stay, and I want to really come up and under here. It's important to really come up and under here. And also what's fragile is this little collection of granulation that's put together in a square that I'm using in a diamond shape. So I'm just really being careful. careful and cautious. There we go. It just moves so quickly. It just, you know, really flows quickly. Okay. Voila. Now, I actually worked with this whole other piece laying flat. That's what I love about working with granulation. Whew, there we go. How are we going to get all this to stick together, right? You're going to see. It's pretty cool. I love it. And, you know, you can use it in, some people don't necessarily like the old-fashioned way of doing granulation. I always like it a little bit dirtier, a little bit scratched, so that's, you know, the way I like it. Okay, here's these turned into my 2.5 inches turned into 3.5 inches of 18 gauge wire. It's nice and flat and flush, so these are going to be perfect for all this little, you know, for like twisting it into these shapes that I'm looking to do. And I'm going to try to show you guys facing upward. I love these pliers. These are the, you know, I actually showed really working with these small points when you're working with things like this, because you can get in and you can decide if your filigree is going to be tight, which means, you know, the layer's really tight, or if you want some negative space in there where you can see through, that's going to be all up to you. You know, you could do it. I've seen this style all over in Europe. I've seen this style. I'm going to pull these ends out a little bit tighter. I've seen, you know, that's part of my Polish culture. I've seen filigree. I've seen it in Mexico. So many cultures have it. Indonesia. This was really one of the main techniques they were doing in Indonesia when I was there. They actually would pick berries from the tree, and they'd pick berries from the tree and they would use that as flux. Isn't that interesting? So for me, I'm always love to be very flexible in what we build. Okay, so say I have a piece like this, right? I'm going to build the same thing up top. So we want a little bit of repetition in here. So I'm going to come around this way. You guys are seeing the same type of curl. Bringing it around. So I've got two this way. And we're going to bring the other curl back down the back side. So watch this. So fun. You could do them as tight as you want. You could leave them just really fun. But yeah, there we go. It's gonna look pretty. So what you really want to do is make sure that your pieces, we're going to have to make sure pieces are touching. So, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. Okay, this one is coming backwards on the piece, right? Yep, back this way. These are all sterling silver. You know, it is easier with fine silver, but I use sterling. I'm so used to soldering with sterling. Some people do fusing with this, but I think I showed other techniques where I do fusing, but I really wanted to just show sterling silver this time. Okay. Okay. You know what I might do? I might switch this piece out. Let me see. Switch out this middle piece to something a little different. I don't really like that one. I a little bit overheated that, as you guys can see. So let me get in. I'll show you another one. These are just these dies that are around. I'm going to do a piece like this. I'm not even going to worry about an outside piece. Okay. Now these, really, the secret of it is just to do a really light torch. This is so thin. These dies that you can buy are so thin. And here's a medium. They're so thin. This die that I hand cut myself, this is a 22 gauge, so I know the gauge of it. Now with this type of style, I'm going to put it up in the air, get this nice and heated, and then when I place this down, pretty much that'll be done. I have one more little, where's my other granulation here? Is this it? Oh, here's my other granulation that I made earlier. And I'm going to actually get a granulation on here. Where's my solder? I think I need another piece. There we go. I want to make sure I put this down solder first. I'm working with my left hand, which is a little tougher, but okay, there we go. Okay, now by the time this medium solder, I just have to make, when you're working with the screen, you have to pull quicker than you think. There we go. See, as soon as you see that flow, you've got to move it. This piece is in better shape than the last one. I kind of overdid that last one a little. When I'm working on the screen, I do have to remember to pull quicker, because the screen, what the hot screen does is it sits and holds all that heat in. So even when you pull your flame, you still get a little bit more heat going on. Okay. I'm gonna cut this in half and see what we're doing here. On to my next one. So this one I might have more space in the center. I'll work a little bit faster since you guys got to see how it was. You know, and maybe I'm going to do this. Whoop. You can see, you know, everything really needs to be touching for this to stay together in a good way. But I'll show you, once we get these pieces in, I'll show you how I make that happen, okay? These need to be nice and flat. See, I kind of like these open ends right here. Like a little putting a puzzle together. This is putting, okay, that's not going to work, see? Putting a puzzle together. And I can always lengthen out. It's going to go here. This one's going here. This one doesn't fit. See that? So what I can do is, it's right here. It's this area. So what I can do is pull it out and make it a little tighter. So you're working with measurements that are pretty close. But I can see here, you know, it is like a puzzle. If you like doing puzzles, you're going to like doing this type of work. And there we go. See that? Just have to make sure things are nice and flat. Oh, look at how beautiful that's looking. I think here I just need a little curl to help hold things together, and maybe two tiny little ones here. Negative space is good. You guys can decide on your own negative space, but I'm going to put a really nice curl right here for this filigree. And this can be done in bronze or brass or copper. See, so it really is just, oh, you know what I might do? I actually might bring it in this way. Bring this around. And do a tiny little tail. So see, I can bring this area, fill it in, bring a tiny tail, and bring it out there. So it's like you're really shaping it for what your piece looks like. Okay. So here's where, you know, your mastery starts coming in. There, I want it that way. Okay, see how that's a little too long? But it's going to look great once I get this fitted in here perfectly. Whoop. Okay. Curl it in a tiny bit more. And I've got it done. Voila. Looking good. Okay. Looking good. It's touching the ends. It's touching all my pieces that I need. I just have one little tiny area right there. So I think I'm just going to do the tiniest of, just a tiny curl. That'll fit. Bring it around this way. See, it's like that artist eye, right, guys? And if it's a little too wide, you just take it and, there we go, push it in a little bit. Okay. I am just going to do this. Let's see if I can put even a tail on here. I don't know. We'll see. Might be just more of a straight up and down tail. I want to get that tucked in, though. Nice, and my voice is getting nice and relaxing, right, guys? When I'm in, isn't that a beautiful little piece? When I'm in my studio, I just get nice and so involved in my head. I think one of the hardest things for me to do was to learn how to talk and teach and have something worth saying coming out of my mouth. You know what I mean? When I'm doing my work here. So it's kind of crazy. Okay, there we go. Good. See that? That's a beautiful pattern. I'm loving it. I could, fill in another part if I wanted to. But now I'm just going to keep it flat on here. This is my flux, by the way. Remove anything that doesn't need to be here. And I'm going to do some pick soldering and just get some medium put on here. I'm doing medium again because with the ring on the back, that's going to be the only time that I'm going to do an easy solder. So I'm just going to pick some different places. You guys have seen how I've thrown powder on this before at a different time. This is with people who want to just be comfortable. If you just don't want to get that powdered solder. There we go. See that? And then I'll just get them connected. But it's just working with them very, very slowly. See where I'm hitting over here? I'm not hitting the edge. I'm hitting the bigger piece because that's where the heat has to go. It's all about where the heat has to go. So I'm sitting it on the edge, but I'm really hitting the inside wire more so than the outside wire. That ends up helping me to get these soldered down in the right way. Remember, I have to get a little bit in this, in the center. I better work on a different piece. There we go. Slowly but sure. The powder was a real quick way. This is a more accurate way. So you guys decide which way you like. Get this pushed down a little. Get this pushed down a little. Okay, now if that happens, we've got to just do a little adjustment in here. Makes it easier once the pieces are starting to center. I can see which ones I still need to work on. And I'm not quite sure this little one is going to work that great. Let me see if I could set it up a different way. Okay, that's better. I love that better. Sometimes things happen and you find a better way, right? So you can see I don't have it that high. I'm just working slowly through all of it. Okay. Oop. Here it is. Okay. I saw these two need to be connected. I need to get them. Oh my God, again. All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pull this piece out. I like for you guys to see little things that happen like this, and I'm gonna get all this soldered in, and then I'll do that piece last. That's what you have to do sometimes. Okay. Now I've got to start getting this connected. Get these two connected. There we go. Starting to get the center connected. You never want to go all the way up from the top because if you do, it's going to cover up your patterns. There we go. Once you get in flow, it happens quickly, right? Let me get this area tacked down right here. And you know what? A lot of times I have, let me see what's loose here. Let me see what is loose now. Looking good, looking sturdy. Let me flex this a little bit again and get this piece in. Let me turn off my flame while I work this last piece. Maybe it is a little too long, but there's always a way to get it in here the right way. And if I had to, I can quench the whole thing. Actually, maybe I'll quench this whole thing and really see what's working. Let me take a feel of it. You want to check in and take a feel and see if there's anything that needs to be corrected. Ooh, this is a good way for this to fit. So sometimes it literally is just picking up your piece and making it fit. All the rest of it seems to really be fitting beautiful. So I'm going to spritz it again. I have at least only one more spot to get the filigree down. Get another piece of medium. This has all been medium. So you guys can see how easy it can stay together. put a little piece. I want this connected to the end. I have to heat this up a little bit more because you guys saw how I had to cool everything off. So this is like starting from the beginning. There we go. Another piece of medium. Get this. I think this is going to be nice connected right here to this piece. There we go. And a little bit on the end here. Just a tiny. So you see how I'm working from the inside. Okay. Everything else looks and feels good. Yay, here's the project. It's going to look so beautiful. I get excited. So, you know, when you're doing work like this, here, I like to put in here. When you're doing work like this, I can take it and curve it and bend it a little bit. You can see in this piece here, I put it actually right onto a sheet of metal. You know, we're not going to do that today, but there's so many different options you can do with this if you wanted to. So I'm going to pickle this, and then I'll show you how I'm going to solder the ring band onto the back. Luckily, I have this nice little plate in the center, and I'm just going to use a nice little thin ring band, and then you have your whole piece. So I'll show you this. I'm going to use this piece here. This actually has liver of sulfur on it already. So here's a way, if you have ring bands that you've made and are sitting around, this one is a size 7, so this is not an adjustable. But if you have liver of sulfur on your piece, you literally have to heat it for the liver of sulfur. You can't just pickle it. It doesn't work that way. So I'm going to pickle this one too. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces here. And oh my gosh, it looks so good. This one, I'm going to work on the back side of it. So, you know, one of the things that I like to do, if I have this really soft board, is I'll find a spot. See how it's uneven? I'll find a spot where this can fit into. This is a nice one. But also, you know, I'm going to maybe turn this around so I can get the angle in here beautifully. And I need to get this all fluxed. Get this piece fluxed. This is my ring band. And let's see, get in here a little bit deeper. This is easy to dig out, which is nice to have these easy areas to dig out. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to actually just either put probably a little bit more. You want to stay off of the ring band. You want to stay off that main part of the ring because that actually, I'm going to put my solder right onto here. Did I dip this? I think I did dip it in the flux. I'm going to do it one more time just in case. Why not? And then I'm going to get some easy solder on the side. Here's where I keep my easy. And right on the side of my piece, there's a little flat end here that I made. So this is where my easy is going. You see, I don't have to have such a big piece. There we go. And let's see, I think now I'm going to use my locking pliers. Let's use the locking pliers. That makes it nice and easy. I'm going to come in from right here with this easy. So I'm going to get in here and just heat things up a little bit. You don't want things to come apart, so you have to be nice and quick with this process. Just right here. And as soon as I see it flow, that's it. Done. Okay, I have a little bit of work to do. Okay. Let me get this pickled and straightened up, and I'll bring it over and show you the end result.